The video is finally here. We've had a lot of questions over the last few years about our donut machine, and so I finally compiled this video to help answer some of those questions. We get a lot of them. So let me answer them all here, and then from now on I can just point everyone to this video, and if it's not answered in this video, feel free to send me a message. So I've just compiled a list of some of the most common questions we get about our automatic mini donut machine. So let me run down these questions, and hopefully yours gets answered here. So we've had our donut machine for about 6 years. And we originally bought ours for a concession trailer. We were doing like a food truck trailer, and we were doing mini donuts, specialty drinks, and yogurt ice cream. And so it was a learning curve. So if you're thinking about going down this road of getting a mini donut machine and doing vendor events or a food truck or something like that, this is going to be a worthwhile video to watch. Hopefully our experience can help. So one thing, probably the biggest question we get asked more than any other question is, what recipe do we use? Okay, so this one, when we first got our machine, we experimented with quite a few different recipes, and because of the type of donut machine that this is, you're not using a yeast dough. You're going to use more like a cake batter dough. Now, I'm a pretty good cook, and if you watch my channel or blogs, you'll see I have a lot of recipes on there. I'm kind of a creative person. So we experimented with quite a few different recipes we had just found on Pinterest and Google and things, and I ended up creating our own. And so I have my own recipe that I created, and I made it for the right proportions that it will just about fill the hopper, which the hopper is the part that holds the batter. It fills it maybe about 2/3 full. And so one batch will fill about 2/3 full, and that'll make quite a bit of donuts. And so that worked perfect for us. If you would like that recipe, I will do the link in the description of this video. And I'm going to show you really quick here the process of how to make it, because I'm a visual person, so sometimes it helps. The one key thing to remember about this recipe is texture. Texture is very key, and so you want to make sure that you're following. A lot of times I don't follow recipes to the T, but there's certain things with this recipe, like melting your butter. Butter has to be melted. Using eggs and just the egg yolks, have to do it that way, because you really want it the right consistency. Otherwise your donuts won't cook up. It won't go through the hopper right and all that. So here's the video on the steps of how I make the recipe, and the consistency, what it should look like, and all that. And so watch this. This is the video, and then like I said, you can click the link in the description. That'll give you a printable version of the recipe from my blog. And then after that, I'll continue to answer some of these other questions that we've had on the machine as well. Okay, remember with the batter when you make it, that wasn't sped up at the end. When the machine goes really fast, you want to do that real fast. My KitchenAid is a 6-quart KitchenAid, and so you can see how full it gets. You want to do a real high speed at the end. You really want to whip it up, and that helps it get the right consistency too. So if you skip that step, no bueno. So make sure that the video wasn't fast forwarded. That was real time. And so just make sure you do that for a minute, get it real high and beat in real good. Okay, so there's a recipe, and again, the link is down in the description of this video. You can go to my blog and print it off and use it there. I would love to hear how it turns out for you. We have done some variations with this recipe that I've added pumpkin puree to it, and if you add pumpkin puree, you want to add about, I think it was about 1 cup of flour extra. You want to have that same consistency, the thickness of the dough, and because the pumpkin puree is more runny than the dough, it's going to tend to thin the dough down. So if you want pumpkin donuts, you can do the same recipe that I just showed you. Just add pumpkin puree to it and a touch more flour, and so that you get that same batter thickness consistency. And we've also done like apple ones, where now apples, you don't want the chunks of apples because they'll get stuck in your hopper, but you can do like applesauce. You could do blueberry with blueberry pie filling. You could do a lot of different variations you can do. Just stick to that basic donut recipe. And then, like I said, if you add a flavor in that's not like an extract, like if you did coconut extract or lemon extract, you can make lemon poppy seed donuts or something. If you add an extract, you're fine. But if you're adding something like a puree, a pie filling, something like that, you're probably going to want to add just a touch more flour in with it. And just feel free to play around with it and see how it turns out, and share some pictures. I'd love to hear how they turn out. Like I said, we've done pumpkin and apple, and then of course the plain ones. I think we did chocolate as well. If you do the chocolate, we did like cocoa powder instead of the nutmeg. So yeah, there's your recipe. I hope that helps you get started. Now let me answer some more questions, some other questions we get quite frequently on the machine. What is the batter thickness? Okay, so this, as you watched in that video when I made the dough, the recipe, your batter thickness, you want it kind of like, it's kind of like a cake batter, a little bit thicker than a cake batter. Because if it's too thick, it won't fall out of your hopper. And I'll show you, let me show you a video really quick of what it looks like and what happens if it's too thick. If your batter's too thick, here's what'll happen. Okay, so you notice how the batter was struggling coming out of the hopper. We had actually made the batter the night before, and then just having it sit out, it was in the fridge and it was cold, and it was, I did a half batch, which my proportions were kind of off, and so it was too thick. We thinned it down after this video and then it was fine, but if your batter's too thick, it won't drop out of the hopper. If your batter's too thin, then you get the opposite. It won't stay in shape. It'll just plop down and it'll make balls. It'll do like all sorts of weird stuff. So your batter thickness is very key in getting the right shape of donuts. All right, the next question. Why are we getting balls? Donut balls. So your donut balls are basically, if you have those in your machine and that's the kind of donuts you're getting, is they're just round balls like donut holes. There's no hole. That's a combination of your oil is too cold and your batter is probably too thick. So the combination between the two of those, that's where you just need to make some adjustments. All right, and our next question. What type of oil do we use? Personally, we use coconut oil. We feel like that it smells the best, it tastes the best, it's technically the healthiest. There's not really any written law that you have to use a certain kind of oil, but donuts are like, they're a dessert thing. You want them to smell and taste good. And especially if you're doing them at events, the coconut oil will really smell good. That draws people in, just the smell of that oil. Instead of, when you go to fast food and you have that oil greasy smell, you definitely don't want that. So we use coconut oil. It does have a lower melting temperature, so it's a little quicker to get the oil melted in the machine and up to temperature. So that's our oil of choice. I definitely would recommend the coconut oil. Where do we buy the coconut oil? There's quite a few places you can buy the coconut oil. You can get it from like Walmart or Costco. In a pinch, we've gotten it from Costco before, but it can be kind of expensive. I mean, it costs about $75 worth of oil to fill the machine to make donuts. You can reuse the oil as well. If your oil starts to smoke, then like excessively, then it's probably getting old and it's time to throw it out. When we were doing events and going through a lot of oil, the cheapest and easiest was to go through web restaurants, and I will link them down below. Go through web restaurants. We ordered our coconut oil by the case and it came in a box. It was super easy to put into the machine. And then we also ordered a special can. It was a metal can with a filter that we could pour the hot oil in. Otherwise, you're waiting for the oil to cool down, because you can't, if you have it in a trailer or truck, you can't drive with this hot oil, right? And if you're doing an event or something, we did that at first too, where it's like, crap, now we have all this hot oil, the event's over, and we had to wait for the oil to cool just in order to get it out of the machine. With the metal buckets, you can put the hot oil right into the metal bucket. It has a filter, and then you can just reuse it out of the metal bucket. We could probably get about 5 uses of our oil before it was time to just get rid of it and chuck it. So as far as the oil goes, web restaurants is going to be your best deal if you're using it a lot and you want large amounts. If you're just doing the occasional event like we do now for holidays and stuff, you can just go to Costco or like I said, Walmart. You can get the tubs of coconut oil. What is the oil temperature setting? So this is a little hard to answer. So ideally you want to have your oil temperature set at 395 degrees Fahrenheit. But there's a lot of factors that come into that. So if you're outside and it's windy, that's going to affect your oil temperature. Our machine was like from China or something, I think. And so our gauges were all in Celsius. So, and then because we've tweaked our machine and taken it apart and things like that, Now my husband has it set where he kind of knows, on our dial, he puts it on 220, which would be like 400 and something Fahrenheit. But so, and we know that's not the temperature, but it's because we've tweaked the machine a little. I think if you had one from China and you like ours and you haven't tweaked it like we have, then you probably are going to want to have it around between 190 and 200 on that setting. But you can always use like a candy thermometer or a digital thermometer. Ideally you want about 395 degrees Fahrenheit. How easy is the machine to use? Okay, so this machine is finicky. Let me just tell you, these donut machines, finicky. They are very temperamental. They can be so temperamental and very frustrating. My husband is very handy and he's great with things, and he struggled at times. It would be working fine 1 second and then all of a sudden it stopped working and it wasn't doing what it was supposed to. We hadn't changed anything. And they're just, these machines are very temperamental. So the more practice, the more you use them, you'll get to kind of know your machine and how it reacts and different settings and stuff like that. But because he is so handy, that's why he had opened the machine when it was doing certain things. He had opened the machine and tweaked things and worked it, and so we could get it to work prime. If he hadn't been as handy as he is, we probably wouldn't, after the first few times of using the machine, we probably would have been done and washed our hands with it thinking it was a piece of junk. But as it is, like, the machine is very temperamental, just super finicky, so be prepared for that. There are settings where it'll drop up to 1 to 3 donuts all at the same time, just one right after another. And ideally, you only want it to drop one at a time. And so sometimes it will just randomly start doing weird things, or it would, yeah, it would wig out. So it's not really a machine that's super user-friendly. So if you're thinking about getting one of these machines and you are not tech savvy, you're not handy, I would not recommend it. Now, if you have any type of mechanical experience, or you're handy, or you kind of can figure stuff out, you're a problem solver, you'll probably be fine. But outside of that, I wouldn't recommend this machine because they are tricky. How many donuts does it make an hour? So this is another tricky question to answer. There's different settings on the machine. You can have the machine just pump out those donuts fast as you can. But the thing is, it takes time for them to cook in the oil and flip. If they go through the machine too fast, you'll get donuts that are doughy on the inside. And so just because it can do them fast doesn't mean they're going to turn out the best. We usually hold our donuts back a little bit and don't let them just immediately go through the flipper. We've found that the rate that works best for us with our oil temperatures and batter and everything is about 1 donut for every 10 seconds. And so if you want to multiply, so that gives you 6 donuts a minute, 360 donuts an hour. So if you're, trying to plan something out, that gives you kind of a rough idea there. How much did our machine cost? So we bought ours quite a few years ago. I want to say it was around $700, something $500 to $700. The place we got ours from no longer has them available, but you can find them on Amazon. I'll link a similar one in the video description. It's not going to be the same one that we have. I like, not the same seller, but there is one that's very similar to ours. And I think last time I checked, it was around, I think it was around 1,100, something like that. Anyhow, so that's and then this is the closest one we found that's like ours that's still available. Should you get a gas or electric machine? So ours is electric. Now there's electric, or there's some that run off propane gas. If you're doing a food truck or concession trailer, I would recommend getting the propane one. That we've heard they're a lot easier to maintain oil temperatures and things like that. We didn't at the time. It was like $500 more for a propane one, and we kind of regretted it. The electric one, the pros of that one is you can have it hooked up. Like if you have an RV plug in your garage, you could plug it in there. It has to have a dedicated 30 amps, so it does have a lot of draw. We got one generator that ended up, it could barely do the donut machine. And so we ended up, and we couldn't run anything else off the generator. And as you know, generators are kind of loud. So if you're doing an event or something, it just adds to the noise. We ended up upgrading, getting a bigger generator so it could run more things off it. And we have our generator, so it's loud. If you're just doing the occasional event, you can always do like an extension cord and have the generator out of the way, which is what we do. But if you're doing it for a food truck or something, I would recommend the propane one. We don't have experience with it, but we heard that they're a lot easier to run and keep the oil temperatures, and you don't have the noise so much from the generator. You don't need as big of a generator, all that. So that's what I would recommend there. Is it worth it? For us, it was not. So we got our donut machine, we got our concession trailer set up, and we did a few events, and we quickly learned if we were going to do that, doing the concession trailer, it was going to consume every weekend, specifically in the summer, but also throughout the year. And we didn't want it to become our life and all of our free time every weekend. We didn't want it to be the trailer. Also, some events, you never knew if it was going to be worth it or not. We would have some events where we might make a few $100s, and other events we went in the hole a few $100s. And that was really discouraging when you're putting all the time prepping everything, and then so you've got a few hours in prepping, and then at the event you're there an hour before the event starts. It takes you an hour after the event ends to clean up. Then you get home, and the next day you've got more cleanup and just stuff from after the event, and you're realizing you got paid maybe $200 for 14 hours of work for two of you or something. It just, for us in our area, and we didn't have a big food truck area, it was kind of a new novelty thing. It just wasn't cost effective for us to do it. So that's why we stopped. There's some people, and another thing was the events. Some of the events, at first they were free for food trucks, which was great. But then some of the events started getting greedy, and they wanted hundreds of dollars for a food truck to be there. And we didn't even make that much when we would go, or they wanted 40% of our profits. And we couldn't make any money doing it that way. And so for us, it was not worth it. We're glad that we didn't go into debt for it, and we kept all of our, well, most of our equipment. So now we can use the donut machine and snow cone machine, things like that. We can use them for birthday parties and fun family get-togethers and holidays. So that's fine. But as far as a business, for us, it wasn't worth it. And so I hope that answers that question a little bit. If you're in a bigger area, it might be more cost effective for you. If you are thinking about the food truck and you have the capital to do it, plan on about $20,000 to $40,000 to get set up for your food truck, for your trailer, a food truck or trailer. That $20,000 is very, very conservative. And that would be like if you were doing a lot of the work yourself. So you're probably going to be closer to the $40,000 to $60,000 range. That's just to start up, to get your trailer, everything set up, and all your equipment. And so knowing that, it's going to take a while to really make that back. So go into it prepared for that. All right, well, those are the most common questions that we get. So I hope that helped answer some questions. And again, if I didn't answer your question in this video, feel free to reach out or comment below and ask away.